Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery.
And I'm Mortimer the Authenticator, and we are the Duality of Man. Sarkeesian has returned in a new form, apparently.
Yeah, we're reacting to a Twitch video um, from this streamer who just went on this ridiculous messenger rant. And we're going to be reacting to a clip from a stream by a streamer called Asmongold. I like his channel. He's a really great guy, makes great videos about gaming and stuff.
I know him mostly by reputation and by a couple of times that he's been responded to by some other people that I know. Like I know V reacted to some of his stuff. So did Dev Short Fat Otaku. Um, I've never actually watched his stuff, but then again, I don't watch a lot of like gaming content except for maybe like lore videos. I'm more interested in lore videos on video games than I am necessarily in playing them because I'm not particularly coordinated.
Yeah, he does do video game play videos, but he also talks a lot about what's going on with like the industry, with like a lot of the stuff that's going on with corporations, like say Microsoft or the drama around Dragon's Dogma 2, whenever that first launched, and people were really unhappy with it. So
Hmm.
like, if you want to know what's going on in like the world of gaming, he's also a great channel to follow for that.
Interesting.
But let's play this clip here because this woman is, I believe, genuinely insane.
Yep. Commence the bananaing.
Let's see here. Is grooming legal on Twitch? What's this? Oh, I think I saw this actually. It's on Twitter, right? So she made this video, right? She said men are the problem with the gaming community. We're gonna watch it.
She wouldn't last 10 minutes in a COD lobby is not, nor has it ever been, a valid excuse for men to act like pieces of human garbage in gaming. There is a reason that historically, male dominated spaces are known for being toxic and unsafe.
All
No,
right.
they're actually not, my dear. The issue is in such systems as the gaming space or other quote unquote male dominated spaces, things are informal and very heavily focused on banter. And because some individuals, both men and women, apparently think that they must be treated like aristocrats at all times, they treat banter as though it is the like foremost of all sins and cannot ever be expected to actually take it on the chin like everyone the fuck else does.
Also, here's the thing: like, not every space is for everybody. Like, if you are in a space that you don't like and that you think is toxic or blah 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 blah, well, it appears that everybody else seems to be having a good time and seems to just be, enjoying the space for what it is. Maybe you're the one that doesn't belong there, and they don't actually need to change. Maybe just find a space for people like you that you can get along with, and then these people can have their space with people that they get along with, instead of having to, alter their space just to suit a tiny minority of whining assholes.
Well, and the other thing is we're talking about gaming specifically, and gaming for most of the latter 20th century and into the 21st was a very nerd focused hobby. Gaming spaces are usually the result of people once upon a time saying video games are for babies, go off in your own little corner and do your own thing then. And so we, the geeks and the nerds, proceeded to fuck off to our own little corners and did our own thing then. And now you're surprised that the subculture built by nerds for nerds doesn't cater to normie, like, type A sensibilities. Oh, the horror. You told us to fuck off and build our own shit. We did. It was very successful. And now that you've seen it being very successful, you want in. Well, I'm sorry, but given that we fucked off and built our own shit, you either have to find your niche within that space, or you can go ahead and be part of any of the other things that you were doing previously.
Also, like, even now when there's more women who do play video games, gaming is still predominantly a male space. And I got to be honest with you, Dalton. I believe that if video game streaming for whatever made up bullshit reason was banned from the internet, I feel like a lot of female gamers would just drop off.
And more to the point, to the credit of the female geeks and female nerds, they don't ask for sensibilities to be altered on their behalf. It is specifically the highly gynocentric normie thoughts or the feminist ideologues that demand culture be altered to suit their aristocratic sensibilities. And that's the thing. Most of the actual female gamers, the ones who, like their male counterparts, were the outcast back in the day, like things the way they are because they helped make it that way, and are quite offended and affronted by this pernicious moral disease we call feminism, or just, basic bitch gynocentrism, mucking it up for everyone else. Because that's another thing about gaming and geek spaces in general, is they're very meritocracy focused, hence the gamer's credo of get good, scrub. And a lot of times what people are offended by is the notion that they should be asked to get good, scrub in any of these spaces. Well, female gamers that are actually female gamers don't have a problem with meritocracy, don't have a problem with the ethos of get good, scrub. They have a problem with the same types of mean girl dismissive cunts who they joined these gaming spaces to get the fuck away from, most likely.
Yeah, and like gamers love like overcoming challenges. And here's the thing, like usually it doesn't really matter how many times you fail as long as you keep trying to again. Like one of the most popular series is like the Solo series, like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, those type of games where people die hundreds, if not thousands, of times.
Yeah.
And people will just say, "Hey, you beat the game, cool." They don't. I guess they don't really like ask them how many times they died. Like at least I've never been asked how many times I've died whenever I've played a game. Like those kind of games like aren't really my cup of tea. Like I've played some of them, I've beaten some of them, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
really the type of game that I like all that much. But there's a reason why they're so popular. It's because it's about overcoming the challenge, which again is highly meritocratic.
And it is telling that a lot of these games have a very classical medieval adventure style story to them. That a lot of these games are very fantasy focused, sort of save the princess, slay the dragon. I mean that goes all the way back to fricking Mario, for God's sake, to some extent. Um,
Yeah,
and
Mario,
thereby,
Zelda.
being a gamer or engaging in these kind of games is very much the same sort of ethos of something like D&D. You want to see yourself, whether you choose to go the self-insert route or not, as the hero who slays the dragon or beats the evil sorcerer or what so the fuck ever. But it is that kind of storytelling that these kind of games appeals to. The idea that you can become the great noble hero or become the one who saves the princess and slays the dragon, etc.
And also,
But
it really just seems that she like asking other people to change their space specifically for you just screams about how entitled you are. And like so many people nowadays feel like they're entitled for other people to change things around because they're not comfortable.
well, and this is the problem of the. I'm not even going to call it the female mindset, because again, there are female gamers who get good scrub along with all the rest of us. The extremely femininely oriented mind that seems to kind of have a soft core narcissism naturally just sort of baked into it of I am the arbiter of the moral pecking order, therefore I am the one who is de facto in charge of all things, and therefore if I don't like something then it will be changed essentially at the drop of a hat. And if you refuse to change, then you are the bad guy, you are the villain, you are the Untermensch, and so forth.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like you can just mute them. Like seriously, like, you don't need to talk to other people in order to play these games. It may enhance the experience somewhat, especially if you're playing with friends, but you don't actually need to talk to these people. Like I've done full like MMO raids where none of the people in the party talk to each other. Thing is, we knew
And
what we had to do. We did. We beat the boss, got the loot, and all fucked off.
and again, it is at least a little bit interesting to me that so much of the focus is on the social element here, because once again, potentially something inherent to the feminine mind, the prioritization of things like social interaction and social order is more of a thing in the feminine mind, I think, than it is in the masculine mind. The masculine mind is focused on doing an accomplishment. The feminine mind is focused on emotion, morality, and sociability. Again, the social pecking order, so to speak.
Yeah,
So
these
what one wonders if this emergence of the fake gamer thought is tied in some sense to the emergence of multiplayer social games, sort of, so to speak.
yeah, it seems like these people like the social aspect is a major part where you know people who just enjoy the video games. It's not a major part. Like the old question: if a tree falls in the forest, doesn't make a sound.
Yeah,
Well, I think for these people, it's more like if you did something and no one knows, did you even really do it?
yeah. The in the sensible, objective mind, the answer is, of course, yes. The tree still fell and it still made a sound, even if no one was around to hear it. In the social-oriented feminine mind, if I didn't get some sort of approval or social validation for doing or seeing this, then it might as well not exist. Most.
All right, I'm gonna play the video again.
Yep, banana.
That goes for gaming, that goes for sports. Any male dominated space is a bad one. You feel attacked by that?
Okay, I gotta stop right there because that is dumb.
This is a evidence that you have had no interaction with men in a non like romantic world, then, my dear, because if you've never seen male camaraderie in any of the activities that men do with each other, then you just haven't been paying attention. Like,
I want to
is it
interrupt a
me?
little bit. No, it's not you know. I just want to be clear. Like, I don't know if she said male dominated or male only.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go back a second.
A bad one. You feel attacked? Male dominated space?
Not even male only. Male dominated. My fucking god.
Again, it
Like
seems as though, in her mind, feminine equals social and moral. Therefore, nothing that is not feminine could possibly be social or moral. Like, the idea of male camaraderie or male social hierarchies is just a foreign concept. Men equals, like, caveman, strawman character. Therefore, derp.
don't. What do you would bet that disaster rescue teams are dominated by men?
I would put quite a lot of money on that if I had anybody to put on things.
Yep, nope. It's bad. Throw it out. No more disaster rescue teams.
Even though, like, a core feature of masculinity is literally save the women and children, and has been as long as we know and as long as EvoPsych can possibly postulate.
Like whenever we talk about people's being worldviews so warped that they're detached from reality, like this is the kind of worldview we're talking about. Because any male dominated space is a bad one. Like you cannot be a reasonable person and believe that. Like you just can't because it's disconnected from reality.
Well, I think the premise she's operating on is that men are not human in the same way women are human. Men are baser, almost quasi demonic animal creatures. Like men are. men are defined as the most baser instincts they have, and women are defined in the abstract as only the most high-minded impulse they have. Women equals abstract, men equals material, therefore. And it might just lead into a straight up men don't possess the same level of like empathy or humanity or sentimental value as women do, according to this person.
Yeah, these are the people that Tim Pool would usually describe as first level thinkers, where they have a thought but they don't go beyond that thought. Or like these are the kind of people who look at society and just acknowledge that society exists without any thought about how it exists, why it exists in its current form, and how it is maintained, which is
Or
almost
let
considered
alone what it
anti-science.
is.
Yeah, these people who think they're deep when they're basically just a thimble.
I they're a hydroplane. There's not even enough water there to make a thimble or to fill a thimble.
Yeah. All right, hit play.
Banana.
Is a bad one. If you feel attacked by that, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
If you say just mute them, you're part of the problem. If
Well, like, you absolutely should just mute them. Like, what would you do?
it's not my place to teach you, I'm not your mother, I'm not your teacher.
All right, if you're not my mother, why the hell should I listen to you at all?
Because women equals moral superior, don't you know? This is the game we're supposed to play, and woe betide
Like
you if you
she,
don't want to play
hold
the
up.
game.
On this point, she's absolutely right. She is not our mother. She is not our teacher. She has no authority over us at all. So fuck off.
But more to the point. I want to go back to the if you're angry about that or offended by that, then you're the problem. Because this has become a meme in like social justice framework in general. The idea that if you are opposed to the thing, then you are the justification for the thing. When usually the form that takes is the adherents to social justice will go out of their way to say the most degrading and dehumanizing shit to and about the audience, the public, the plebs, etc. And yet, if the plebs have the audacity, the sheer unmitigated goal, to feel in any way negative about that, or to express in any way negative about that, then they are the it seriously is as though they don't understand how saying the worst conceivable things about and to someone doesn't rationally justify, doesn't causally justify them responding negatively. It's like if I were to say to you, you're a subhuman beast, and then got like shocked and surprised about you reacting negatively to me calling you a subhuman beast. That is the level of like just sheer causation is not a thing we are dealing with here. And that is also why, and this is why I get so anal retentive about this. They demonize causality and transactionalism like it's not the basis for a rational ordering of the universe, and it frustrates me.
Like this is the absolute worst type of woman to have in a space. Like, if you were to say like a D&D group and this woman entered, just dissolve this space immediately and reform it somewhere else.
Yeah, no, and again, I am not saying that women are not welcome. It is specifically women like this. Women who apparently can say all of the dehumanizing, degrading, horrifying shit she wants and not in any way see it coming when she might piss people off with this. Like we're allowed to degrade you, but you are not allowed to in any way feel degraded or express that you have been degraded by that. And if you do, then you are the worst scum ever conceivable, apparently.
Yeah. And I've met a lot of women who are, great gamers, and I've had like a lot of fun playing with and talking with games about. She does all of them a great disservice.
Yeah, and the thing is, again, it seems like this new crop of feminist ideologue, quote unquote, gamers are the mean girls that used to bully not just, not just us nerds, not just male nerds, but also female nerds. The kind of girls, the Regina Georges of the world. But because,
These,
sorry, go
so
ahead.
I'm saying these are the people who only became interested in gaming because it was now a popular thing to do. If gaming wasn't like say all the same games were coming out and gaming wasn't a popular thing to do, they wouldn't touch it.
Well, no, and that's the thing. Here is at the very least the summary of what happened in my head. Game geeks and nerds and gamers were interested in their hobbies for their own sake, on their own terms, because they actually saw something valuable in them. The Chads and Stacys of the world, so to speak, poo-pooed and shamed and beat up those geeks and nerds when they could get away with it, and told them to go hide in their mother's basement or build their own spaces or something. The geeks and nerds said something to the effect of, "No, you guys don't realize how cool this stuff is. I'm gonna show you." And then they go and build the infrastructure of basically an entire subculture and provide a proof of concept. And only after the geeks and nerds have proved themselves would these people even deign to say, "Hey, look, turns out this thing we were all shaming and shunning not 5 seconds ago, turns out it's actually really cool. It couldn't possibly be that it's because we were wrong, though. It's because we must have been gamers all along, don't you know? Or they must have
Well,
changed a bunch of shit."
I feel like some of them may have been genuinely convinced, while others are just basically using it as another way to strip their fucking egos.
This is true. There are sort of late stage nerds or people who had more nerdy tendencies than I thought they did. I'm not going to exclude them from the prospect, but it very much does seem like um, the only reason the normies are willing to give geek stuff the minimal benefit of the doubt that they're willing to give it now is because literally the gamers and the nerds and the geeks proved themselves so hard that they literally couldn't ignore it anymore. It's a literal so good they can't ignore you situation. And yet they still don't want to see it as valuable for its own sake. They still don't want to admit that they were wrong. They still don't want to admit that gaming and geekdom is good because of what it is. They still want to change it and have moral authority over it and shit. And then they're surprised when, after they change the shit that actually was majorly successful, it stops being majorly successful. It's almost as though the reason people like these things has nothing to do with socio-political and moral themes, and everything to do with the thing being valuable for its own sake and you being wrong about that supposition in the first place. Anyway, banana.
Yep. Because I've seen this video and it does get worse.
Oh god.
Close the game for 5 minutes and educate yourself, but stop making the
Oh, educate yourself.
They literally pulled the They literally pulled the educate yourself meme. I can't. They still don't understand how pompous and aristocratic that sounds. And moreover, it sounds literally ignorant because you're assuming that your interlocutors are inherently inferior to you, which has always been at least one of the problems of the educate yourself meme. By using the phrase educate yourself, you are insinuating that you are the one in moral and intellectual authority in the situation, and that you have nothing whatsoever to learn from any perspective that isn't your own, or isn't sanctioned by some higher academic authority. Let alone that there are other perspectives in academia, let alone that, but
Here's the thing: if you actually want to convince people of your ideology, which these people don't, they just want to moralize. But if they actually were interested in teaching people in, convincing them that that they're correct and their views are wrong, well, then you actually have to get them to believe that, and you're not going to do that by just saying, "Oh, go read up on yourself," because they could read up on themselves and conclude, "Oh, this is bullshit."
Well, and that's the other thing. Educate yourself is not a offer to educate you. Educate yourself is you are morally inferior until you have been through the academic obstacle course, and I don't consider you worth interlocuting with unless and until you have gotten the authoritarian stamp of approval. Never mind that appeal to authority is literally one of the oldest logical fallacies in existence, but that's a problem far too big for the scope of this video or this stream.
All right, I'm gonna hit play.
Banana.
It's a bad experience for everybody else who's just trying to play the game.
So this is a video she did. A lot of people are mad about this. Men are the problem with the gaming community. This is the same person. She's playing
Oh, this
Valorant.
next, I just to prep you up. This next one is freaking wild.
I am prepared.
No, it's over, Ina. It's over. Like, if I were to have a boy, we better pray to God that he's gay. We better start indoctrinating him day one.
Now here's a fucking...
Okay, wait. Speaking myself as a gay man or a bisexual man who predominantly prefers dudes, you do realize that someone can be gay and still disagree with you, right? You're not pulling the identities are platonic hive minds thing, are you? You're not pulling the you're not being your identity unless you also hold to a philosophical framework, are you? No, she is. I can't find any way of interpreting that sentence other than she literally thinks that to hold a gay identity is to also hold a philosophical framework, and that therefore the gay identity is some kind of platonic oversoul or something.
Yeah, she's
But yeah, no. Go ahead.
Yeah, what like she's the person that believes to be gay is to be this identity. It's not just about having sex with somebody of the same sex. It's about literally an identity that has all these beliefs attached to it.
And moreover, I would bet dollars to donuts when she thinks of being gay, she probably also thinks of being an effeminate twink. She probably also thinks that there are no masculine gay people, let alone tops. Which again, this blind spot people have where they think literally every gay person must be the most effeminate Big Gay Al from South Park. I'm super thanks for asking hypersexual twink, and that there are no gay men with masculine qualities or muscles or anything. It baffles me. In order for there to be so many bottoms running around, someone somewhere must be a top. You guys do know that, right?
Yeah, like my godfather, he's gay. He was in the army. Like he's a pretty good shape. I would not call him like effeminate like at all. Like, I probably wouldn't even think he was gay if I didn't like obviously grow up knowing he was gay.
Yeah. And yet, like, we've this is literally the horseshoe theory. It's being so devoted to stereotypes that you think being stereotypical is a necessary component of the identity. It's that level. These people bitch and moan about negative stereotypes or even positive stereotypes some of the time. And yet this entire ideology, this entire conceit is, to be this identity properly, you must conform to this stereotype. And any deviation from this stereotype means you're not being gay correctly, and or have been secretly turned against your own kind and have an internalized Stockholm syndrome towards another identity. Like literally,
I
they
mean,
would say to you that you are effectively possessed by the demon of whiteness because you don't fit every Sambo archetype you possibly could.
well, here's the thing. Like, I'm pretty sure that the gay people that she hangs out with, the thing is, like, because they're gay, obviously they're not interested in dating women. I feel like her and the gay people that she hangs out with literally only have one thing in common, and that's the hatred of straight men.
Well, I mean, there that is possible too. There's also feminism's dirty little secret that it only became ideologically acceptable for rich white women to like gays when someone came up with the theory that gay men and women have femininity in common and therefore are also oppressed by the patriarchy. That is literally the basis for feminism's intersectional claim over gay men, and it fucking pisses me off. The idea that what people who were gay were oppressed for was not their dislike of women, even though we have the historical record of people literally saying the thing that grosses them out about gay men is that they don't love women. Never mind that lynchings were literally over that in the historical record. The feminist theory reason why gay people are acceptable is that gay men equals feminine equals oppressed by the masculine patriarchy. Therefore, gay men are just like women. Which is also why I think it's so easy for them to fall into this whole every gay man has to be an effeminate twink, because if what makes gay men acceptable to feminist women or gynocentric women is their femininity, then woe betide you if you're a gay man who possesses any masculinity whatsoever. Then you're an identity traitor, don't you know?
Fact, all right? I hate this shit that like girls do this. I feel like this is like actual bigotry. Girls love to like ascribe all of these good traits to gay guys. I know plenty of gay guys that are toxic as fuck, man. What the fuck are you talking about? Like somehow him.
I mean, that is true too. Because they are human, a certain percentage of them are also cunts. Because to be a human is to possess moral and intellectual agency and have a unique identity, which means that some portions of gay men are going to be good, some portions of gay men are going to be bad, some portions of gay men, in fact, probably the largest portion of gay men, are just going to be straight up neutral like every other fucking person in the universe. And the same is true of all the other intersectional identities as well. It's the other problem of thinking in this like platonic oversoul hive mind bullshit. It prevents any sort of individuation between different people within the same identity group.
That was one of the problems with large groups, especially with in terms of large groups and like when you talk about demographics. It's usually the most toxic people that are the freaking loudest.
This is also true.
Like,
I mean, I
often
wasn't the one singing the "We Will Convert Your Children" song. And yet, that is apparently what a large sum of people think being gay is now, or morally should be, apparently.
Like, the fact that anybody thought that was a good idea will never cease to astound me.
I just like, it's literally taking every fear that any traditionalist crackpot ever had about gay men, and not only refusing to disavow it, but literally going Chad yes to every negative stereotype and still thinking you're the good guys.
Not only that, but like when people see this, it's gonna take people who are basically in the middle and then push them on the other side because of how ridiculous and extreme it is.
Yeah, I tried to explain why this was an optics fail, and people were literally arguing with me about it, and I'm like, okay, I understand that they're trying to joke, but along with the joke premise of oh, well, the only conversion we're interested in is converting people to be good people, which is the premise that they think they were going for. They also threw in ideological activism, um, dislike of the nuclear family, etc. And again, the idea that the people in these the people in these children's lives are incapable of treating them to or incapable of teaching them to be tolerant and fair on their own, and therefore they must be taught by the people singing the song. That premise is incredibly condescending and dehumanizing for anyone who disagrees with you. And that kind of shit, along with the to be gay is to be an activist bullshit, which is the other thing I caught, and I was immediately like, okay, even trying to be charitable here, you just conflated being gay with being a gay activist, which is wrong. So yeah, even trying to be charitable, it's like, in along with the joke premise, you also threw shit that you think is funny because it's true, i.e., things that you believe unironically. And that is something that people will object to and should object to because it actually is dehumanizing and creepy. Some of us actually meant it when we said we just wanted to find someone to love us and get married and have a decent family someday. Like, this is the thing. There were apparently back in the 90s so many people who said that they were just interested in things like toleration and acceptance, but they were using that as a tactic. And then there was another half of us that actually said those things and meant them unironically. And now we're having to deal with the people who were only using it as a tactic, going mask off, and making all the rest of us that actually meant it unironically look bad.
Yeah.
Like, I still literally just want to find someone who could love me, and I could love in return, and get married and have a decent life together someday. Still really my only goal as far as this is concerned.
All right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna hit play again because I think there's still a little bit more.
Yep, banana.
Him being gay is gonna make him not toxic? No, bro, that's not true. You know what that is? That's stereotyping. It is.
Pray to God that he's gay. We better start indoctrinating him day one. We have to either make him trans or make him gay. We are not having a cisgender straight son.
Okay, and now of course the elephant in the room, which is of course the I word, indoctrination, meaning that you will literally take someone whose natural proclivity was to be straight and insist that they present as gay or trans so that they can effectively be morally purified of the original sin of being masculine and or preferring a heterosexual partner. The horror. Because that literally is, to these people, whether they be feminist or whether they just be extremely gynocentric, being masculine and heterosexual is apparently a kind of original sin that they must be sanctified from through moral education, quote unquote.
Yeah, can you imagine if? Can you imagine being this kid, being her son, and having to grow up like being straight and interested in women, and like having your mom just like spew this bile and venom in your head, like making you hate yourself essentially.
Not to mention, this kind of indoctrination almost always backfires, meaning the harder you try to make him gay, the more like Andrew Tate-ish he's going to end up being. Just like the more you try to suppress a gay child's gayness, the gayer they're just going to end up being. Because reaction
But here,
formation is a known thing in psychology.
but here's the thing though, Dalton. Like, what if it, what if it does work? Like, what if this mad woman convinces her son to like try and be gay or try and be trans? Because as I'm sure you're aware,
Then he
she will
will
have.
commit suicide at an early age, and we will all be the worse for it.
But here's the
Because,
thing, like that there have been people who have done absolutely insane things in order to get their parents' love.
yes.
Like this is really, really dangerous.
Yeah, no, this is a clusterfuck of catch-22 because either it won't work and thereby he will become exactly as toxic as you fear him being as a reaction formation, or it will work and you will teach this poor child that there is something inherently wrong with him and that he must strive morally to be literally everything other than what he is.
Yeah, to
And
be
that
what
will
he is would be
inevitably teach
considered
him
immoral.
that he is worthless and that he should feel bad for simply existing, which will probably inevitably lead him to an early suicide, just like a lot of
I would
detransition stories.
I would say it's worse. Not it wouldn't be that he's worthless. It'd be that he is actively bad. He is actively a harmful force on the world. That should be convincing of if he was a straight man.
Which is why I believe I mentioned this in the suicide episode of this show. One of the one of the lies about suicide that I find to be maximally insidious is that suicidal people are selfish. Because I can tell you from experience as someone who has dealt with these sorts of thoughts, the thought process is actually, I am a bad person. I am a drain on existence simply by being in it. And so the best thing I can do for those that I love, those who I do not want to hurt by inflicting myself on them, is to remove myself from existence so that they at least no longer have to deal with me, and in that way I can leave the world better than how I found it.
Well, I don't.
That's literally the thought process that leads a lot of people to suicide. Obviously, not all. There are, variants within the suicidal ideation thing, but
Yeah, they could
a
also go
lot
for
of suicide is not selfish. It is an attempt to remove a stain from the world if you are convinced that you are a horrible drain on existence.
or it could be like if this son is raised by this woman, gonna he's not gonna just be like beaten down. He's also probably going to adopt this ideology in some form. And
Yes, he's
as we
going to
saw with
believe
the
it's
person
true.
who yeah, as we saw with the person who self-immolated in for the sake of Palestine, that I believe he was in the U.S. Air Force. Like, people will also end themselves over their ideologies, and when it's as radical as the stuff that someone is spouting, I can absolutely believe it.
Because if you believe this kind of ideology unironically, then suicide just becomes a natural consequence of the ideology because you believe that everything you are, everything you do, everything you contribute to the world is bad or even oppressive, that you are actively hurting people simply by existing in the world. And as I just went over with the suicide thing, that's a large percentage of the people who commit suicide. They're not being selfish, they're trying to take more responsibility for their existence by removing themselves from it because they've become convinced either ideologically or just from their own negative self-talk that they are a bad person, that they are a negative impact on the world, and so the best thing they can do for those they love is to stop making them have to deal with the burden of dealing with them by removing themselves from the world.
Yeah, and another thing, you know, the idea of grooming children into like being gay or trans has been a big topic as of late. A lot of people have been focused on people in the gay community you know grooming other people's kids into this kind of stuff. Obviously, I don't feel like I need to say obviously, but obviously not all. But I feel like now people have to worry about women who are so indoctrinated into this bullshit mindset that they're going to do it to their own children. And I feel like we've seen that before, because I feel like a lot of the things with like these transgender children, like I believe Bill Maher said it on one of his shows, that like this kind of stuff is common in places like California, and it's not common in places in Ohio. And so then you have to ask why.
Well, the reason is the same way as when this dynamic was reversed. A a person learns what it is to be human and what it is to be moral from their mother first. a person's mother is their 000 on the graph of what it means to be human, because they're literally the first human that a person ever uh, forms any sort of bond with or models themselves after, even before fathers, because mothers do most of the child rearing in that formative 0 to 4 year old period. And as Aristotle said, give me a child until he's 7 and I will give you the man. Well, most of the time before boys or girls are at the age of 7 is spent learning what it is to be human and moral from their mothers. So if mommy tells me that this is how we be a good human, then I am going to take that with an inordinate amount of weight, especially if they're in a single mother household and there is no supplementary or contrary influence from, say, a father figure.
Yeah, but I feel like mothers are really good in like the very early stages, but I feel like fathers are better in the later stages because like there have been studies showing that when people are raised only by single mothers, like they have a higher chance of
They have to
incarceration. But
fill the hole of masculinity that was left in their lives. Yeah.
not only that, but I feel like the father is all right, when people are very young, they're children, like they don't know anything, they're innocent, they're just trying to learn and figure out the very basics. But I feel like when they're older, they begin pushing boundaries, and I feel like the father is important in order to provide that secure boundary and those hard lines that you are supposed to teach people not to cross.
Yeah, because femininity at its best is nurturing and coddling, and masculinity at its best is ambitious and adventurous. Generally speaking. Obviously, hashtag not all, but as a general rule, that's how the breakdown goes. And if you don't allow for one or the other of those things to emerge, then you are going to raise a human that is basically a ticking time bomb. And the problem with human time bombs is much like all time bombs, they eventually explode.
I feel like masculinity provides structure. Like it's not enough just to have this person who you know feels whatever they feels and is constantly talking about their hopes and ambitions. I feel like you need rigid structure because here's the thing. Like take clay. Like clay is itself, you know, it's basically just
A
there. It's
material
not.
thing.
Yeah, it's not that useful. But when you form it into bricks, it becomes extremely useful, and you can build things with it.
Now, mind you, we should not see men only as valuable as, bricks, because that is the other, trap of extreme gynocentrism or ideological feminism. If men are only valuable for what they do, then fuck is the man who has emotional or sentimental needs.
Well, obviously, I'm not saying men are the exact same as bricks,
No,
but
I get the metaphor. It's just it is important to note that as useful as bricks can be, we don't particularly ascribe any sentimental value to bricks, now do we? And given that
no.
it's humans we're talking about, you might want to check that. You might want to make sure you keep that in mind, that you are in fact dealing with a child, or a young boy, or a man. Like as useful as a good man can be, at some point he has to be seen as something other than just useful, unless you don't want him to see himself as a human, in which case that will be a problem.
And I just gotta say, I don't think any man at all should ever have children with this woman because no man should ever doom their progeny to being raised by an individual like this.
let alone being genetically half this person.
Or I'm going to hit play. There's a little bit more
Yes.
left.
Yep, banana.
Like, I don't understand like what the logic with this is. Like, so how do you have a son? Who do you have a son with? You would probably need a straight dude at some point or another to be part of this situation. She said we. We means more like two people. So this is the person, guys. This is the person who gaming needs to change for.
Better pray to God.
This is the
that
person
he's gay.
that
We
everybody
better
needs to
start
change for.
indoctrinating him day
Right here.
one. We have to either make him trans or make him gay. We are not having a cisgender straight son.
I think one of the only possible conceivable upshot in this, cloud of darkness is that she would essentially be ending her own genetic line at one generation.
I mean, yes, but just a editor's note here. It's not good to indoctrinate children at all. And I'm gonna point this out because there was a time where the indoctrination that people had was to indoctrinate all children into, being very straight, very traditional valued. And that didn't work either. That was inhumane as well. So maybe, just maybe, we should focus less on indoctrinating children and more on teaching them how to be functional people. Like, instead of focusing on making them a carbon copy of you and your values, maybe focus on making them a self-determined agent who can make their own goddamn decisions about that. I.e., instead of indoctrination, the focus should be on actualization.
I
But
feel like
then
there are
again,
some
she would have to
things
see her male son, her male child, as a human or someone who is capable of becoming a well-rounded human. And I don't think she has that capacity to see her children. And it must be said that a lot of abusive parents, both men and women, have this problem where they see the child as only an extension of themselves and or their property. And that's not healthy. You're raising a human, please treat them like at least a potential human, not just a doll upon which I can project all of my my unresolved dreams, wants, wishes, and fantasies or ideologies.
I would disagree with you on one thing. I feel like indoctrination can be bad, but it can also be good. Like, for example, if you were to say indoctrinate the youth of America with things like, a love of the country and, a sense of civic responsibility, I feel like that would be just an overall good thing for the country and for them.
See, indoctrination implies a removal of agency, an authoritarian forcing of a perspective. And that's why I say that indoctrination is bad and that actualization is preferable. Because here's the thing: if you simply provide as many sides of the story as you can, and give the child the ability to, the agency to make their own decisions, those that are inclined to be patriotic will be patriotic no matter what you do. But if you try to force patriotism onto them, then you're making the same mistake that the ideological communists are making, or the ideological social justice warriors are making.
I'm not saying to blindly love everything about the country. I'm saying that you should teach them with a sense that it's flawed, yes, but there's still a lot of great things about it, and this is our home, so we should love it and try to take care of it.
Well, but I wouldn't necessarily consider that indoctrination. And again, the distinction I make between what is and isn't indoctrination is the authoritarian projection of values, ideas, and interests, rather than again actualizing the child into someone who can examine these matters for themselves and come to their own fucking conclusions someday. because I feel like that should be the goal, and one of the many problems of the American educational system is we have completely forgotten, or in many cases I think incentivized ourselves to forget, that we're not trying to make good little soldiers, we're trying to make people with the capacity to make up their own fucking minds. And so much of the problem with the educational system is that that seems to be the last thing on so many people's minds. We
I feel like,
don't seem to desire free thinkers or even independent thinkers.
I mean, nowadays kids are being actively taught to despise the country.
Yeah, and that's not good either. But I'm not going to sit here and say that in the 1950s, when the Cold War was on, we did kind of force feed traditionalism and patriotism into kids. That was good either. I think the advent of the 60s and 70s is a sign that there was something screwy about teaching or using schools not as a means to actualize people into full and well-rounded agents, but as good little soldiers in our ideological war machine. But I don't
I
like
feel
the
like,
current one either. I would just
to be fair,
prefer if we teach kids how to think and let them sort that shit out for themselves.
I feel like if I was going to teach kids things, it would be how to be good citizens and with a full understanding and respect for the responsibilities that being a citizen bears.
And then the sad thing that often gets overlooked is if you give the kids a safe environment to learn in, where they're not being ideologically swayed one way or the other, a lot of them will come to the sane and self-actualized position of, yes, I should care about this. But if you don't give them the option or the tools to think for themselves, and you just tell them, hey kid, these are the right answers, this is what you need to know for the test, and also this is the moral ideology that is the single correct moral ideology, then you basically retard any capacity for them to think, and we wind up with generation upon generation of pre-programmed ideologues.
I
And
mean, how? I mean, you cannot be a full functioning citizen to be able to carry out the duties of a citizen and the way that they're supposed to be carried out if you come out of an American school today, because people are coming out here who can't even read.
yeah,
They're
no,
functionally illiterate.
yeah, it it's active again. It very much seems like we want an assembly line of action figures rather than, or an assembly line of labor robots that can do the workplace thing, rather than individuals with the capacity and tools to think, reason, and arbitrate things for themselves. And
Especially because
a populace that can't arbitrate things for themselves or have independent thoughts is not a populace capable of engaging with any sort of republic or democracy whatsoever.
not only that, but obviously it being an election year, like the, these people are not going to be understand like the big, complex labyrinthine ideas that are going to come about in a political election. Not only that, but these are the kind of people who are going to be so used to having somebody, lording over them of higher authority that they're going to be incapable of arbitrating things themselves and are always going to appeal to more and more government, which is going to give more and more government control.
And I mean that is the that was the mask off aspect of COVID, I think. You saw just how many people not only will fall in line behind the dear leader, but actually the people that wanted to do so and found it to be a moral good to do so. Because the thing is, being falling in line because you're forced to is nowhere near as dangerous that as falling in line because you actually are convinced it is a moral good to do so. That's a whole other order of magnitude up on the authoritarian scale. Not only believing that you are going to because you must, but you are going to because you've convinced yourself that it's the right thing to do. That is when we get into the Führer said so territory, or I was just following the orders. And has any good ever come out of the sentiment, I was just following the orders? Because I have yet to find an example anywhere where I was just following the orders and, like, offloading my moral faculties onto someone else ever led to anything good, for starters, but also anything that lasted for more than 5 minutes before it inevitably collapsed under its own weight. So not only is it not morally good, it's also not qualitatively, like, substantive in its results, usually. The sentiment, I was just following the orders. That's a recipe for societal collapse. And I don't know if you've noticed the world around us or anything, but that might or might not explain a few things.
Yeah. So we've been going for over an hour. Do you have any thoughts about this woman and her insanity?
Can we just not do this again? Because it's not only is this person detestable in every way that I can possibly detest someone, this is also the exact same arguments that people like Anise Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn made back in, like, 2013, and we're still doing it occasionally, apparently. Can we just not anymore? Can this case be closed at last?
Yeah. Yeah. My last thing would be to all the men out there who listen to this: avoid women like this, like the plague. Like, I don't care how attractive they are. Like, I don't care if you think it's not that bad. Just know that you will be dooming yourself and your children if you ever get involved with a woman like this.
If they're ugly on the inside, no amount of outer beauty makes it worth it, my friends. And there are women who actually would give a damn about you as a human being, and not just as a bodyguard, a robot, an appliance, and a wallet. I know it's hard to believe, especially in today's day and age, but there are people out there who give a shit about you as more than just a doing, and can care about you as a being instead.
All right. I'm going to close things out. I've been Mr. E.
I've been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we have been the Duality of Man. Cheers, guys. Don't stick it in crazy.
Bye, everybody.